The small gray ship entered the solar system silently. It moved past Neptune, then Uranus, keeping its distance from the large gas giants. The ship was just one scout vessel from the vast galactic hegemony, but it carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Its mission was simple: observe the blue planet and prepare it for incorporation into the Empire. Aboard the International Space Station, astronaut Kathy Brooks floated toward the observation window. She had noticed something odd on her instruments. A blip that shouldn't be there, a reading that made no sense. "Daniel, can you come look at this?" she called to her crewmate. Daniel Wright pushed himself across the module and hovered beside her. He adjusted his glasses and peered at the screen. "That can't be right," he said, tapping the display. "Something moving that fast would have to be..." His voice trailed off. "Not from around here." Kathy finished his thought. Within 6 hours, every major space agency on Earth was tracking the object. Within 12, the militaries of the world's superpowers were on high alert. And within 24 hours, the object had settled into orbit around Earth's moon and sent its first message. The message came simultaneously to every major communications center on the planet. It was a simple announcement in perfect English and several other Earth languages. "Greetings from the galactic hegemony. We come in peace to establish diplomatic relations." In Washington, D.C., veteran diplomat Frank Miller was pulled from his retirement party and driven directly to the White House. At 62, Miller had handled more international crises than anyone in the State Department. But nothing had prepared him for this. "They're asking for a face-to-face meeting," the president told him in the Situation Room. "You're our best diplomat, Frank. I need you to lead this." Miller straightened his tie. "Madam President, I've never negotiated with aliens before." "None of us have," she replied. "But the principles are the same. Find out what they want, protect our interests, and don't make promises we can't keep." 3 days later, Miller led a small team to a meeting point in neutral territory, a platform hastily constructed in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The alien ship that descended was much smaller than the one orbiting the moon, but still impressive. It hummed softly as it landed on the platform, its metallic surface reflecting the sunrise. When the door opened, Miller tried to hide his surprise. The alien that emerged looked almost human, except for the bluish tint to its skin and the extra joint in its fingers. It wore what appeared to be a formal uniform, dark purple with gold trim. "I am Ambassador Zorthul of the Galactic Hegemony," it said in perfect English. "I speak for the High Council." Miller stepped forward. "Frank Miller, representing the nations of Earth. We welcome you in peace." The meeting lasted 3 hours. Pleasantries were exchanged. Gifts were offered. Basic information about both civilizations was shared. To Miller, something felt off. The alien was polite but seemed almost bored, as if going through motions rather than engaging in real diplomacy. Then, just as Miller thought the meeting was wrapping up, Ambassador Zorthul revealed the true purpose of their visit. "Your world will be incorporated into the hegemony within one standard cycle," he announced casually. "Approximately 1 Earth year. This meeting is merely a courtesy to prepare you." Miller stared in disbelief. "Incorporated? I don't understand." "Your planet will become part of our empire," Zorthul clarified. "You will receive the benefits of our technology and protection. In exchange, you will provide resources and accept our governance." "That's not acceptable," Miller said firmly. "Earth is home to sovereign nations. We're not looking to be incorporated." The alien's expression didn't change. "Your acceptance is not required. This is merely an announcement, not a negotiation." Miller's team exchanged worried glances. A military advisor whispered urgently in his ear, but Miller raised a hand to silence him. "Ambassador Zorthul, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. We're open to peaceful relations, trade, cultural exchange, but Earth will remain independent." The alien tilted its head slightly. "Your species is still quite primitive. You've barely left your own planet. The hegemony spans thousands of worlds. Your resistance would be," he seemed to search for the right word, "inconsequential." As the alien delegation departed, Miller's hands were shaking. He had faced tough negotiations before, but never one where Earth's freedom was treated as a foregone conclusion. Back in Washington, emergency meetings were called. Similar meetings were happening in capitals around the world. Military options were discussed and quickly dismissed. Earth's weapons were no match for a civilization that could cross the stars. In a secure conference room at the Pentagon, retired Navy Captain John Lewis watched the recording of the meeting with the alien ambassador. Something about it triggered a memory, a classified incident he had been part of 15 years earlier. "I need to speak to the Joint Chiefs," he said to his former colleague, who had invited him as a consultant. "I think I know why they're approaching us this way." "What do you mean?" asked the woman beside him, a general now, though she had been a lieutenant colonel when they served together. 15 years ago, my ship encountered something in the Kuiper Belt. Something not from our solar system," Lewis said quietly. "It's still classified above top secret." The general leaned forward. "Go on." "They scanned us, tried to disable our systems. We fought back with what we had. It wasn't much, but it was enough to surprise them. Before they retreated, we managed to intercept a transmission. It took years to decode, but it was a warning to others." "A warning about us? Humans?" the general asked. Lewis nodded. "The message called us dangerously unpredictable and recommended careful study before engagement. Don't you see? This hegemony? They were warned about us once. That's why they're being cautious, setting up monitoring stations, giving us a year's notice. If you're right, it means they respect our potential even if they're pretending not to," Lewis finished. "And it means we might have a chance." Above Earth, more hegemony ships arrived daily. They positioned themselves in strategic orbits, deploying monitoring platforms and scanning the planet thoroughly. From their command vessel, High Commander Krell watched the primitive blue world with growing interest. "This species shows unusual patterns," he noted to his subordinate. "They're already coordinating a global response despite their political divisions." "They are no threat to us," his officer replied confidently. Krell wasn't so sure. Something about the humans made him uneasy. He pulled up the historical records, searching for any previous contact with this world. There was a notation, a minor incident from years ago filed away as insignificant. He opened the file and began to read. His posture stiffened with each word. On Earth, humans were preparing for the fight of their lives, not yet knowing that the galactic hegemony was about to relearn a lesson. Never underestimate those who have nothing to lose but their freedom. Captain John Lewis sat in a room filled with the most powerful military leaders on Earth. The Joint Chiefs listened silently as he told his story. 15 years ago, his Navy research vessel had traveled to the distant edges of the solar system. That mission was supposed to be about studying ice formations in the Kuiper Belt. No one expected to find an alien scout ship. "They appeared suddenly on our sensors," Lewis explained. "At first we thought it was a malfunction. Nothing could move that fast." Admiral George Washington leaned forward. His deep voice cut through the room. "You're claiming this encounter was covered up?" "Not covered up, sir. Classified." "There's a difference," Lewis replied. "A small team has been studying the data we gathered ever since." Lewis tapped on a tablet, and a recording played on the large screen. Strange symbols flowed across it, followed by an English translation. "Species shows unexpected resistance capability. Primitive but effective. Recommend careful study before engagement. Classification. Dangerously unpredictable." The room fell, silent. Then someone laughed. "You expect us to believe this?" asked a general. "That some aliens ran away from a Navy research vessel?" Lewis didn't flinch. "We didn't drive them away, sir. We surprised them. They were expecting defenseless primitives. Instead, our electromagnetic countermeasures temporarily disrupted their scanning systems. It was luck, not strength. But they didn't know that." Admiral Washington studied Lewis carefully. "And you think these new visitors are the same aliens?" "No, sir. But they might be from the same galactic community. That warning might have been logged somewhere in their records." A woman at the end of the table finally spoke up. Dr. Elizabeth Parker was the world's leading expert in language patterns. She had been called in to analyze the hegemony's communications. "Captain Lewis may be right," she said. "The language, structure in that warning shares similarities with what we've seen from the hegemony. Different dialect perhaps, but related." Admiral Washington stood up. "Get me verification of this encounter. I want evidence, not just stories." Within hours, classified files confirmed Lewis's account. The encounter had happened exactly as he described it. More importantly, the warning message had been thoroughly analyzed over the years. It was genuine. Meanwhile, Dr. Parker and her team worked around the clock in a secure facility. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, who had helped decode the original warning message years ago, joined them. "The patterns are definitely related," Rodriguez confirmed, pointing to sequences on their screens. "Like cousins in the same language family." Dr. Parker nodded. "If we can prove the connection, we might have leverage. We can remind them they were warned about us once." Above Earth, the hegemony ships continued to arrive. They numbered over 30 now, positioned in strategic orbits. Commander Susan Bennett of the newly formed Space Force monitored their deployments from a secret bunker in Colorado. "They're setting up a grid," she told her team. "Coverage of every continent, every ocean. They could strike anywhere." On the hegemony command ship, High Commander Krell reviewed the historical record with growing concern. The incident report from 15 years ago had been filed as a minor anomaly, but the warning about humans being dangerously unpredictable now seemed important. "Why was this not brought to my attention earlier?" he demanded of his intelligence officer. "The encounter was with a different species, sir. The Zorthan Empire. They are not part of the hegemony. But they shared their database with us when we conquered them 5 cycles ago," Krell said sharply. "This information should have been flagged." Krell studied the detailed scans of Earth. The humans were mobilizing, though their efforts seemed futile against hegemony technology. Still, something about their coordinated response troubled him. On Earth, world leaders gathered at an emergency United Nations session. Old enemies sat side by side, united by a common threat. Frank Miller addressed them, his voice steady despite his fear. "The hegemony expects us to surrender without a fight. They believe we are primitive and divided. We must prove them wrong on both counts." Country after country pledged resources and military support. A unified Earth defense strategy began to form. Scientists and engineers worked together across borders, sharing technologies and ideas that had once been closely guarded secrets. Dr. Parker's team finally made their breakthrough on the 5th day after the hegemony's arrival. "We've confirmed it," she told the emergency council. "The warning from 15 years ago is in an older version of the hegemony language. They've received it, cataloged it, but apparently dismissed it." "Can we use this?" asked Miller. "We've prepared a message," Dr. Parker explained. "It reminds them subtly of that previous encounter. It suggests that the warning was accurate, that humans are indeed unpredictable and dangerous when threatened." The message was transmitted to the hegemony fleet that evening. For several hours there was no response. Then the hegemony ships began to move, changing their positions. "They're pulling back slightly," Commander Bennett reported, "increasing their distance from Earth." The next transmission from the hegemony came from Ambassador Zorthul himself. His tone was noticeably less dismissive. "The hegemony acknowledges Earth's response. We are willing to discuss terms of incorporation that respect certain local customs." Miller smiled grimly at his team. "They're worried. That's a start." But Earth's small victory was short-lived. 3 days later, the hegemony launched its first show of force. A beam of energy struck an uninhabited island in the Pacific, vaporizing it instantly. "A demonstration," Zorthul explained in his next message. "Resistance remains futile, but the timetable for incorporation has been accelerated. You have 30 Earth days to prepare your planet for transition." In his private lab at MIT, Professor Alan Grant had been studying hegemony scanning technology. His team had captured data from the aliens' preliminary scans of Earth. What they discovered gave them their first real hope. The hegemony relies heavily on quantum resonance scanning, he explained to military leaders. But certain Earth metals, when arranged in specific patterns, create interference fields. You're saying we can block their scans? Admiral Washington asked. Not completely, Grant admitted, but enough to blind them in key areas, enough to give us a fighting chance. A global manufacturing effort began immediately. Every factory capable of working with the required metals was reassigned to produce defensive shields. Meanwhile, Captain Lewis was given a new mission. We need to get inside their command ship, Miller told him. Find out what they really know about us, what they're planning. Lewis looked at the images of the massive hegemony vessels orbiting Earth. That's impossible. Not entirely, said Dr. Parker. We've been analyzing their communication patterns. There are weaknesses we can exploit. Ways to get you aboard undetected. Lewis studied the plans. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it might give Earth the edge it needed. When do we leave? He asked. 2 days, Miller replied. We've got a prototype spacecraft waiting. It's been enhanced with everything we've learned about their technology. As Lewis left to prepare, he looked up at the sky. The hegemony ships weren't visible in daylight, but he knew they were there watching, waiting. You were warned once, he murmured. You should have listened. The United Nations building had never been so crowded. Leaders from every country sat shoulder to shoulder. Old enemies put aside their differences. The entire world watched on screens as Secretary General Victoria Okonkwo called the emergency session to order. We face a threat unlike any in human history, she said. But we will face it together. The plan they approved was bold. Earth would not simply defend itself. It would actively resist the hegemony. Countries began sharing military technology that had been top secret just days before. Scientists worked across borders that had once been closed. In her lab, Dr. Parker showed her latest findings to Frank Miller. The message we sent definitely rattled them, she said. Their communications have increased by 300%. They're arguing among themselves. Miller studied the translations on her screen. Can you tell what they're saying? Not all of it, but there are repeated references to the warning and something called Protocol 7. That seems to be their procedure for dealing with potentially dangerous species. Lieutenant Rodriguez entered with a tablet. We've intercepted something interesting, she said. A private message from High Commander Krell to the Hegemony Council. The translated message appeared on the main screen. Request additional resources. For Earth Incorporation. Species shows concerning patterns consistent with Zorthan warning. Recommend full containment protocol. They're asking for reinforcements, Miller said. That's good and bad news. Good because they're worried. Bad because we'll face more ships. There's something else, Rodriguez pointed out. This reference to full containment appears in other messages. We think it means they plan to isolate Earth completely before attacking. Miller nodded grimly. Then we need to move faster. Across the globe, factories worked around the clock producing the metal configurations Professor Grant had designed. The patterns looked simple, just specific arrangements of copper, aluminum, and rare earth elements, but when properly aligned, they created interference that blocked hegemony scans. Chief Engineer Paul Johnson coordinated the global manufacturing effort from a command center in Detroit. We're up to 10,000 units, he reported to Admiral Washington. But we need 10 times that to shield our key facilities. You'll have them, the Admiral promised. Every factory that can bend metal is being converted. In his lab at Stanford University, Dr. Richard Lee had made his own breakthrough. His team had been studying hegemony communications and found a way to intercept and decode them more efficiently. Their quantum communication system isn't that different from experimental systems we've been developing, he explained to Commander Bennett. With some adjustments, we can listen in on almost everything they say to each other. Bennett smiled, for the first time in days. That could give us the edge we need. In orbit, the hegemony ships continued their preparations. High Commander Krell received disturbing reports from his scanning crews. Large areas of the planet are going dark too. Our scanners, reported Subcommander Vrex. They've discovered a way to block our quantum resonance technology. Impossible, Krell said. Their technology is too primitive. Nevertheless, it is happening, and there's more. Our communications are being intercepted. The humans are learning about us faster than we are learning about them. Krell studied the planet below with growing unease. Begin the first phase immediately. Target their military installations. On Earth, radar operators watched as the hegemony ships changed position. They're moving into attack formation, Commander Bennett announced. All countries, activate defensive shields now. The first attack came at dawn. Beams of energy struck military bases around the world. But thanks to Professor Grant's shields, the damage was far less than the hegemony expected. 80% of the targets survived with minimal damage. The hegemony's second wave targeted power plants and communication centers. Again, the shields held in most locations. They're testing our defenses, Admiral Washington said. And they're surprised by what they're finding. In a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Lewis prepared for his mission. His team included 4 specialists: Captain Nathan Carter, a tactical expert; Dr. Lisa Mitchell, a technology specialist; Ryan Cooper, a former Special Forces soldier; and Kevin Andrews, the best test pilot in the Air Force. Their ship looked nothing like a conventional spacecraft. Built in secret using reverse-engineered alien technology, it was small, fast, and designed to be nearly invisible to hegemony sensors. Remember, Lewis told his team, our mission is information gathering. We need to access their command database and get out. No heroics. Dr. Mitchell checked her equipment one last time. The quantum intrusion device should get us past their security protocols. I'll need 3 minutes once we're inside their system. You'll have them, Lewis promised. As they prepared to launch, news came of a major development. The hegemony had landed troops on Earth for the first time, a small force in an unpopulated area of Australia. But local military units using the new defensive technology had engaged and actually defeated the alien soldiers. They're not invincible, Admiral Washington told Lewis over the secure line. Their personal shields can be overloaded with enough conventional firepower, and their weapons, while advanced, have limitations. They can't see through our interference fields any better than their ships can. This news gave Lewis's team new hope. As their ship rose silently from its hidden base, they watched the hegemony fleet growing larger on their view screen. Stealth, systems at maximum, Andrews reported from the pilot's seat. They don't see us. Their target was the hegemony command vessel, a massive ship 10 times larger than any other in the fleet. According to Dr. Lee's intelligence, it contained the central database for the entire operation. As they approached, they saw dozens of smaller ships coming and going from the main vessel's docking bays. We'll slip in behind that supply ship, Andrews said, matching speed with a boxy vessel heading toward the command ship. Their entry went smoothly. Too smoothly, Lewis thought. They landed in a busy hangar bay and used the confusion of multiple ships arriving to slip away unnoticed. Dr. Mitchell led them toward the ship's central computer core, following schematics developed from intercepted communications. This way, she whispered, checking her handheld scanner. 2 levels up and 3 sections over. They encountered few hegemony crew members, and those they did see paid them no attention thanks to the disguise fields they wore, another technology based on Professor Grant's discoveries. When they reached the computer core, Mitchell went to work immediately, connecting her device to an access terminal. I'm in, she said after a tense minute, downloading everything I can find. Lewis kept watch with Cooper while Carter secured their escape route. Andrews stayed with the ship, ready for a quick departure. 67% copied, Mitchell reported. There's so much here. Wait, something's wrong. An alarm began to sound. Not the blaring siren they expected, but a soft, pulsing tone. They know we're here, Cooper said, raising his weapon. Keep downloading, Lewis ordered Mitchell. We need that data. 93%, she said, just a few more seconds. The door to the computer core slid open. 3 hegemony guards stood there, weapons ready. Lewis and Cooper raised their guns. Complete, Mitchell shouted, disconnecting her device. What happened next would change the course of the war. As the guards fired, Cooper threw a small device, one of Grant's interference generators. The alien weapons failed, their energy dispersing harmlessly. Lewis and Cooper fired their conventional weapons. The guards fell. "Move! Back to the ship," Lewis ordered. As they ran through the corridors, Mitchell checked the data she had stolen. "Captain, you need to see this," she said breathlessly. "The hegemony, they're not as powerful as they want us to believe. They're fighting wars on 3 other fronts. They're stretched thin." Lewis took a quick look at her screen. "Can you broadcast this to every ship in their fleet?" Mitchell smiled. "Give me 2 minutes when we reach the ship." Earth was about to turn the tables on the galactic hegemony. The invasion that had seemed unstoppable just days ago was about to face its first major setback, and it had all begun with a simple warning ignored and forgotten until it was too late. Alarms blared throughout the hegemony command ship as Lewis and his team raced back to their vessel. The corridors filled with alien soldiers, all searching for the human intruders. "This way," Captain Carter called, leading them down a maintenance passage. They could hear the sounds of pursuit growing closer. When they reached the hangar bay, they found it in chaos. Crews rushed to their ships, responding to the security alert. Andrews had the engines running, ready for a quick escape. "Get in," he shouted as they approached. "We've got company." Dr. Mitchell clutched her device containing the stolen data. "I need to broadcast this now, before we leave." Lewis nodded. "Do it." As the rest of the team secured themselves for takeoff, Mitchell connected her device to the ship's communication system. "I'm setting it to transmit on all hegemony frequencies," she explained. "Not just to their fleet, but to every hegemony outpost and colony within range." Cooper fired at approaching guards. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster." "Sending now," Mitchell said. The ship's antenna glowed as it broadcast the stolen information. Andrews didn't wait for confirmation. He lifted the ship off the hangar floor and shot toward the exit. Energy beams sliced through the air around them, but the small, agile craft dodged between larger vessels, using them as shields. "They're scrambling fighters," Carter warned, watching the radar display. As they cleared the hangar, they saw the enormous hegemony fleet spread out before them. For a moment, Lewis thought they had no chance of escape. Then something strange happened. Many of the hegemony ships began to power down their weapons. Some turned away from Earth entirely. Their communication channels, which Mitchell had tapped into, filled with confused chatter. "It's working," she said in amazement. "They're receiving our broadcast. The information is spreading through their fleet." What Mitchell had discovered in the hegemony database was explosive. Records confirming that the Empire had indeed received warnings about Earth, but dismissed them. Evidence that the hegemony was fighting wars on multiple fronts and losing. Proof that many of their subject species were on the verge of rebellion. Most damaging of all was a message from the Hegemony Council to Commander Krell, instructing him to capture Earth quickly as a show of strength, to discourage other rebellions. The message admitted that the hegemony was not as powerful as it claimed to be. Now this information was spreading to every ship in the fleet and beyond. "Head for Earth," Lewis ordered Andrews. "Full speed." As they approached Earth's atmosphere, they saw hegemony ships moving in strange patterns. Some were retreating to defensive positions. Others seemed to be arguing with the command vessel, refusing orders. "We've created confusion in their ranks," Carter said with satisfaction. Back on Earth, the stolen data had already been received. Dr. Lee and his team worked quickly to analyze it. "This is better than we hoped," he told Commander Bennett. "The hegemony is facing rebellions on multiple fronts. They came here hoping for an easy victory to boost their reputation." Bennett studied the tactical displays showing the hegemony fleet in disarray. "Then let's make sure they don't get it," she said. "Prepare all defensive systems for a coordinated counterattack." Aboard the hegemony command ship, High Commander Krell faced a crisis. His officers reported growing unrest among the fleet. Several captains were openly questioning his leadership, and now he faced the fury of the Grand Admiral himself. The holographic image of Grand Admiral Zentar glowered at Krell. "You have failed spectacularly, Commander. Not only did you allow humans to infiltrate our command ship and steal sensitive information, but you also let them broadcast it to the entire fleet. Grand Admiral, I can explain. The explanation is simple. Centaur cut him off. You disregarded the warning about this species. The report clearly classified them as dangerously unpredictable, yet you treated them like any other primitive world. Krell had no answer. The warning had seemed so minor, filed away in the records of a conquered empire. How could he have known it would prove so accurate? The Council is recalling half the fleet immediately, Centaur continued. We face rebellion in the Orion sector that must be contained. You will remain with the reduced force and complete the subjugation of Earth. With half our ships, Krell protested. The humans have proven more resourceful than expected. Then you should have brought more ships to begin with, Centaur said coldly. Do not fail again. As the hologram faded, Krell knew his position. Perhaps his life depended on victory. He would have to act decisively. Prepare for full attack, he ordered. Target their largest population centers. We will force their surrender through fear. On Earth, Lewis and his team received a hero's welcome. The data they had stolen had changed the entire dynamic of the conflict. Earth now knew that the hegemony was vulnerable and exactly where to strike. Admiral Washington gathered Earth's military leaders to plan their response. The hegemony is about to hit us with everything they have, he told them. Half their fleet is leaving to deal with other rebellions, but the remaining ships are more than enough to cause massive damage. Professor Grant stepped forward. We've improved our defensive shields, he said, and we've developed something new, a way to not just block their scanners but to actively disrupt their ship systems. He displayed a design for a new weapon, one that used the same principles as the interference fields but amplified 1,000 times. This could disable their ships without destroying them, he explained. It overloads their power systems, forcing an emergency shutdown. How soon can we deploy these weapons? Washington asked. The first prototypes are ready now, Grant replied. We can have hundreds within 48 hours. Dr. Lee added his own news. We've also developed what we're calling a quantum virus. Once introduced to their communication network, it will spread to all their systems, corrupting their navigation and weapons targeting. The pieces were falling into place for a counterattack. Earth would not wait for the hegemony to strike again. This time, humans would take the fight to them. The next morning, as the sun rose over the Pacific, Earth launched its first offensive against the galactic hegemony. Hundreds of aircraft, equipped with Grant's new weapons, rose to meet the alien fleet. Satellites modified with Lee's virus prepared to infiltrate the hegemony network. As he watched the forces deploy, Frank Miller stood beside Secretary General Okonkwo in the United Nations Command Center. Do you think we have a chance? She asked quietly. Miller nodded. More than a chance. They were warned once about humans. Now they're about to learn exactly why that warning was given. High above, the battle for Earth's future was about to begin. And despite all their advanced technology and weapons, the hegemony was about to learn a painful lesson. Never underestimate a species fighting for its home. The sky above Earth filled with light as the battle began. Hegemony ships fired energy beams at Earth cities, but the new shields held strong. Earth's aircraft rose to meet them, carrying Professor Grant's disruption weapons. Attack pattern Delta, Commander Bennett ordered from her command post. Target their smallest ships first. The human pilots followed their training perfectly. They flew in tight formations, avoiding the worst of the alien weapons fire. When they got close enough, they activated the disruption weapons. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Hegemony ships began to lose power. Their lights flickered and went dark. Some drifted aimlessly in orbit. Others fell into emergency power modes. It's working, Admiral Washington exclaimed, watching the tactical display. Their systems are overloading. In his lab, Dr. Lee and his team launched the quantum virus. They sent it through Earth's satellite network, targeting the hegemony's communication systems. Virus deployment complete, Lee reported. Now we wait. The virus spread quickly through the alien fleet's network. Ship after ship reported navigation failures and weapons malfunctions. The carefully coordinated hegemony attack fell into chaos. On the command ship, High Commander Krell struggled to maintain control. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Why are our ships losing power?" "Unknown, Commander," his officer replied. "Some kind of energy field is disrupting our systems, and there's a corruption in our network spreading faster than we can contain it." Krell slammed his fist on the control panel. "How can primitives do this to us? We are the Galactic Hegemony." "Sir," another officer called, "we're receiving strange messages from the conquered worlds in the Orion sector. They're declaring independence." Krell's blood ran cold. The humans had not only defended their world, but they had also inspired others to rebel. The information they had stolen and broadcast was having exactly the effect he had feared. On Earth, the counterattack continued. Earth's largest space agencies launched special missiles designed by Professor Grant. These didn't carry explosives, but rather massively powerful versions of his disruption technology. When the missiles reached the larger hegemony, vessels they detonated in bursts of electromagnetic energy. Ship after ship went dark. "We're winning," Frank Miller said in amazement as he watched from the United Nations Command Center. Secretary General Okonkwo nodded. "But at what cost will come after? We've made an enemy today." Miller considered this. "Perhaps, but we've also shown that we're too much trouble to conquer. That may be protection enough." After 6 hours of battle, nearly 80% of the hegemony fleet was disabled or retreating. High Commander Krell faced a decision he had never imagined making. Surrender or retreat. "Prepare for emergency jump," he ordered. "We're leaving this system." "But sir, the Council will view this as cowardice," his second-in-command protested. "They can call it what they want," Krell replied. "I call it survival. This species cannot be conquered with our current forces. The warning was correct. They are dangerously unpredictable." As the hegemony command ship prepared to flee, a message arrived. From Earth, it was from Frank Miller. "High Commander Krell." Miller's face appeared on the main screen. "Before you leave, I propose we talk. Not about surrender, but about peace." Krell was surprised. "Peace? After we tried to conquer your world?" "We understand that the hegemony is facing troubles throughout the galaxy," Miller said. "Perhaps this is a chance to try a different approach than conquest." After a moment's thought, Krell agreed to a meeting. 3 days later, representatives from Earth and the hegemony met on neutral ground, the same platform where they had first encountered each other. This time, Miller was joined by Secretary General Okonkwo and leaders from all Earth's major nations. Krell brought only a small delegation. He looked less confident than before. "The hegemony acknowledges the strength and resourcefulness of Earth," Krell began formally. "We propose a cessation of hostilities." "Earth agrees to peace," Okonkwo replied. "But we want more than that. We want recognition as equals." What followed was the first true negotiation between Earth and an alien civilization. The terms were simple. The hegemony would leave Earth's solar system and recognize Earth's independence. In return, Earth would not share its disruption technology with other worlds rebelling against the hegemony. As the negotiations concluded, Miller had one more question for Krell. "The warning about Earth from 15 years ago, did it influence your approach to our world?" Krell hesitated before answering. "It was noted, but not given proper importance. A mistake we won't make again." 6 months later, Earth had changed dramatically. Knowledge gained from studying hegemony technology accelerated human development by decades. The United Earth Defense Force that had formed to resist the aliens remained in place, now focused on exploration rather than war. In a historic moment, Ambassador Olivia Wilson prepared to attend the first meeting of the Alliance of Free Worlds, a gathering of civilizations that had thrown off hegemony control. Earth had been invited as an honored member, the spark that had ignited a galaxy-wide movement for freedom. Before leaving, Wilson met with the team that had made it all possible. Lewis, Dr. Parker, Professor Grant, Dr. Lee, and Frank Miller. "We've come so far in such a short time," she said. "From nearly being conquered to joining a galactic alliance." "The hegemony did us a favor in a way," Lewis remarked. "They united Earth like nothing else could have." Miller nodded. "And we learned something important. Sometimes the best defense isn't technology or weapons, It's being underestimated. As Wilson boarded the new Earth ship that would take her to the Alliance meeting, she carried with her a gift for the other free worlds. A plaque with words that had become Earth's unofficial motto since the invasion. It read simply, "We were warned once." So were they. In the depths of space, the remains of the hegemony continued to fight rebellions across their once vast empire. Their records now contained a new entry about Earth, classified at the highest security level. It read, "Approach with extreme caution, technological capability, rapidly advancing, military threat, severe, diplomatic status, respect as equals recommended." And at the very end, added by Commander Krell himself, "They were warned once, we should have listened." Earth had taken its place among the stars not as a conquered world but as a respected power. Humanity had proven itself not just capable of defending its home, but worthy of joining the greater galactic community. As ships from a dozen alien worlds arrived at Earth for trade and diplomatic missions, humans looked to the stars with new eyes, not with fear of invasion but with hope for friendship. And when new civilizations were discovered, trembling at the might of Earth's fleet, they were approached not with threats, but with respect. For humans had learned firsthand what it meant to face a seemingly all-powerful enemy. They had been on the receiving end of that warning once. They would not make the same mistake the hegemony had made. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and now humanity would explore it as equals, not subjects. All because a warning had been ignored, and a supposedly primitive species had proven to be far more than anyone expected.